on the last episode of the Keepsake box. Just like that, I said yes. I said yes without even thinking about it. I didn't think about the potential complications. I didn't think about the blowback. I didn't think about how Antonio would feel if he found out. I just said yes. The moment the word left my mouth, Diablo got down to business. "Give me your phone," he said. I reached into my purse and passed my phone over to him. He inserted a number into my contacts and passed it back over to me. I looked down at my phone. I snickered and addressed him. "Angel? Who's Angel?" He laughed as well. "My legal name is Angel," he said. He told me that since he and I were about to get personal, I should address him by his real name. I found it laughable that his birth name was Angel, but his cartel name was Diablo, Spanish for devil. Not as funny was the reasoning for his nickname. Apparently, Angel was quite ruthless. While most Point A people relied on their goons, Angel didn't mind getting his hands dirty. He had quite a reputation for handling his business. He was rough in every single way. He also insisted that I call my Point C guys to let them know that they were no longer needed, while I was right there with him. Angel was deliberate and to the point. He didn't cut any corners. So I did as I was told. Angel and I had sex that same day. He was soft and gentle. He kissed me the right way. It reminded me of the way that Antonio made love to me, and I felt guilty, but that didn't last long. Angel had a way of showing me who he was. Sex with Angel always started off very sensually, but after I was legitimately aroused, he made sure to let me know that he was in charge. Angel loved rough sex, and when I say rough, I mean rough. Angel loved to pull hair, choke, and spank. Initially, it was uncomfortable, but after a while, I was incredibly turned on by him. He was powerful, he was aggressive, and I loved that. I did whatever he asked, and he upheld his end of the bargain. He set me up with a power team of Point C women, and they were amazing. They were professional and firm. They didn't play games, and I never had to worry about them trying to sleep with me. And just as Angel said, they were perfect. My business jumped in a way that I couldn't ever imagine. It was amazing, and I rode the wave. All was well until I forgot to feed Peaches. Chapter 17, Hungry Lion. Narrated by Shandora Warren. Music by Epidemic Sound. I often reference conversations that I've had with Antonio when things go awry. One thing that Antonio always told me was to pay more attention to what someone has done opposed to what you expect them to do. He had a way of speaking to me in a way that a father speaks to a child. It was simultaneously amusing and insulting. But one fact couldn't be disputed. Antonio was usually correct in his assessment of the situation. In his attempt to get me to understand his feelings about Peaches, Antonio broke it down to me in this way. He said, "Let me tell you something, little girl. Very few things will surprise you if you expect the worst from everybody, even people who have given you no reason to do so. But understand that you can't ever trust somebody who has crossed you. You can't even trust somebody who you understand has crossed someone else. Your love for a person will not stop them from being who they were truly intended to be. Let's say you're a trainer at a zoo. You may have the best relationship with a lion that no one else can tame. That lion may take a liking to you, and you may feel that you have earned its respect. But understand that if you fail to feed that lion one time, he will eat you. The fact that you wouldn't eat a lion will not be taken into consideration. That lion will eat you because the lion seeks to be full at any cost. That's why you got to keep your eyes open, little girl. Don't put your hand near the lion's mouth." Although I very seldom admitted it to him, Antonio always had a point, especially when it came to Peaches. Peaches had fallen out of Antonio's good graces because she failed to separate business and pleasure. Additionally, she had a blatant disregard for the rules. Antonio had simply asked the girls not to fall in love with the clients and not to have unprotected sex. Peaches had done both and created a set of circumstances that basically ensured the demise of Antonio's business. My problem was I saw the good parts of Peaches without balancing them out with the bad. But isn't that what I had always done? Those decisions hadn't ever worked out well for me, and the situation with Peaches wouldn't be any different. I trusted Peaches. Consequently, the lion was about to eat me. Peaches and I went on about our daily lives without a care in the world. Stars Bar and its subsidiary company were both doing very well. Since we were doing so well, Peaches introduced the idea of expanding the business. I admit it sounded like a good idea at the time. Year 2 had made me more comfortable with the process, and my dealings with Angel had ensured me that he would have my back. We could easily have expanded, but I wanted to take the time to properly vet our prospects. There were several avenues that we could have taken, but I bypassed many of them for various reasons. In some cases, they hadn't been in business long enough for me to trust their business practices. In other cases, I was able to trace them back to Antonio in some way. Antonio was aware that I had ventures outside of him, but I didn't want our businesses to intersect. Admittedly, my romantic feelings for Antonio had declined a little. He had been gone for 2 years, and I was doing my thing with Angel. Additionally, handling Antonio's business made me understand that he wasn't entirely the person that I thought he was. But I still felt obliged to carry things the right way in our business relationship. I had too much fear and respect for him not to. So I took my time, and I was meticulously sorting through our potential business clients. Along the way, something changed with Peaches. She became less social and less accessible. There were days when she didn't answer the phone, or she was extremely short in conversation. I didn't put a lot of thought into it. Life was pulling us in a million different directions. Peaches was doing her thing, as was I. I couldn't expect that things would be the same as they were when we were Antonio's girls. Things had changed. Life had changed us. As far as I was concerned, all was well with the business, and that's the only responsibility that Peaches had to me. I never wanted to have her under my thumb like Antonio did. In hindsight, I understood why he needed to. The fact of the matter is, all wasn't well. That's the part where I got sloppy. On average, I was a stickler for stalking the details. I stayed on top of Antonio's books because there were other people in the picture. But Peaches and I were the only one involved in Stars Bar. I trusted her to the point that I didn't watch her. And by the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. The lion was hungry, and in not feeding her, I had basically offered myself up as a sacrificial lamb. It was a Friday morning, and I was preparing to deposit drug money, as I had many other times before. I had thrown an event a couple of weeks prior to justify why I would be making a large deposit into the sub account. After paying everything that was owed and putting up the money for the next buy, I was left with $27,000 in residual income. That was the money that would be deposited into the sub account. Obviously, I was more organized than the average drug dealer. While I had accounts and sub-accounts, most other dealers dealt strictly in cash. I stashed the cash in the business safe and left it there until I was ready to deposit. And there it was, Friday. It was my usual deposit day. That was a routine that I had completed many times. But on that Friday, I opened the safe to find that there was no money to deposit. The safe was completely empty. I closed the safe and reopened it, as if the money would somehow reappear if I repeated the process. Unfortunately, the money was still gone. I became dizzy and was suddenly overcome with the urge to vomit. My bother wasn't just in the fact that the money was missing. Sure, that was a large part of it. But the most bothersome part of the equation was the understanding that Peaches was responsible. There were no other options to consider, as she and I only had the combination. I love Peaches like a sister. I had put a lot of time and energy into helping her come up, and I trusted her with my reputation and my business. I was disappointed in her, but I was also disappointed in myself. I was upset that I had failed to heed Antonio's warnings. I knew I wouldn't tell him about what Peaches had done. I couldn't. I thought for a moment. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation for why the money had disappeared. I called Peaches, hoping that she'd offer an explanation that would keep her in my good graces. Of course she didn't answer. I was disappointed, but not surprised. But yet again, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she had simply stepped away from her phone. Deep down, I knew that my initial thoughts were completely on base. I just didn't want to believe them. Peaches and I wouldn't ever be the same, and I knew it. I was tickled momentarily. When I thought back to all of the animal references that Antonio had used to advise me against trusting Peaches, the comparison seemed so varied. In some instances, he had referred to Peaches as a shrimp. In other instances, he had likened her to a lion. She was justifiably compared to both for very different reasons. The thought of them both merged together in my mind. It was oxymoronic, yet thought-provoking. Peaches was a shrimp. She was a scavenger. She ate whatever she came across as long as it satisfied her need at the time. But Peaches was also a lion. She was a predator with an appetite that far surpassed that of other predators. The average lion can easily eat up to 25 pounds of food in a day's time, another fact that was given to me by Antonio. There was something incredibly dangerous about a creature that was impartial enough to eat whatever was available and gluttonous enough to overindulge. I imagined a creature with a lion's head and a shrimp's body. It seemed that the lion portion of the creature would eat so much that it would pop its little shrimp's belly. I imagined that Peaches would pop. I imagined that all of the love, consideration, and money that I had invested would come seeping out. I too would be exuded from her little shrimp body, as Peaches had eaten me as well. Suddenly the shrimp with the lion's head wasn't so comical. In fact, it was quite frightening. The one thing that was set in stone was the fact that something had to be done. I sat for a moment and contemplated my next move. I knew I had to pay Peaches a visit. My phone was ringing like crazy. I hurriedly checked it each time, hoping that it was Peaches calling, against all odds. But it wasn't ever Peaches, and I had no desire to answer. I drove to Peaches' apartment, hoping that she would be there and in a talking mood. Her car was there, so I knew that she was at home. Since Antonio had gotten arrested, Peaches and Cream had no other choice but to drive themselves around. I refused to pick up that part of Antonio's business. I knocked on Peaches' door. Well, knocking is a bit of an understatement. I banged on the door, to no avail. I, again, began to experience the sensation of being nauseated. In my mind, I felt that Peaches had taken my money and skipped town. It made things official. I returned to my car, feeling completely defeated. I knew that it was over. As I said before, I had already paid everything off, including Peaches. The money that she stole was the money that was left over. I could easily have made that money again, but Peaches and I couldn't ever be the same. That made me incredibly sad, but things were about to get worse. Just as I was about to leave Peaches' house, I got a call from Cream. I wasn't in the mood for Cream's antics, and I considered not answering. But the thought that she may have information about Peaches made me work against my better judgment. I reluctantly answered the phone. Hello. Cream dominated the conversation immediately. You Peaches? She asked. There was a sense of urgency in her voice. It made me nervous. I told Cream that I had just left Peaches' apartment and that I was looking for her as well. Cream paused for a moment before she addressed me. I'm about to pull up. Get over here, little girl. If you remember, Peaches and Cream lived in the same apartment complex, but in different sections. What should have been a 2-minute drive unexpectedly turned into 10. I still can't explain how I managed to drag it out for that amount of time, but I drove long enough to mull over a multitude of thoughts. Where was Peaches? What did Cream need to tell me? Why was her request for my presence so urgent? I felt completely out of control. I arrived at Cream's apartment and found that she was standing outside. She looked angry, like the mother of a disobedient child. For some reason, I felt guilty, and I couldn't explain why. I hadn't committed an offense against her, but I felt that I was in trouble. I walked towards Cream, wondering what I was about to encounter. She allowed me to enter and immediately started asking questions. What you done, little girl? That was Cream niece for. What have you done, little girl? I was genuinely confused about her line of questioning. As far as I was concerned, I hadn't done anything wrong. I had started my own operation, but Antonio was aware, and while he hadn't been 100% on board, he gave me his blessing. He only asked that I not neglect his business for my own, and I had done an amazing job of balancing the two. Well, I thought I had. Cream started ranting and Cream niece, and I was unable to follow the conversation. Wait, I yelled. What are you talking about? Cream paused for a moment to catch her breath. She told me to sit down and not to interrupt her. I did as I was told. I listened, and her account helped me to understand what had been happening right under my nose. Apparently, Peaches decided that my rules didn't apply to her, and it seemed that she went down the list and systematically broke them all, one by one. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow Shenny Tells a Story on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in purchasing books by Shandora Warren, they're all available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and some in hardback formats. Thank you for helping me to create the world that I want to see. Oh yeah, you're welcome. Shine, little girl.